At my wife's company party, all the guests were wearing suits, but she handed me a paper bag with eye holes cut out and said, "This will be better for everyone." Her colleagues thought it was a joke until they saw how seriously she meant it. So I've been married to Sarah for 8 years. We met in college, got married young, and I thought we were happy. I mean, we had our problems like any couple, but nothing that seemed insurmountable. I'm not the most confident guy, never have been. I've got some scars from a car accident when I was younger, and my teeth aren't perfect, but I always figured Sarah loved me for who I was inside. You know? Last night was her company's annual holiday party. Big fancy thing at some upscale hotel downtown. Sarah works for this marketing firm and she's always been the social butterfly type. Knows everyone, remembers their kids' names, the whole deal. Me? I'm more of a wallflower, but I've always tried to support her at these things. So we're getting ready, and I put on my best suit, the navy one we bought for her brother's wedding. I'm feeling pretty good about myself, actually. Got a haircut earlier that week, trimmed my beard nice. Sarah comes out of the bathroom looking absolutely stunning in this red dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Then she hands me this brown paper bag. First, I thought it was a joke. Like, maybe she had a surprise gift in there or something. But then she starts cutting eye holes in it with scissors. "What's this for?" I ask, genuinely confused. "It's themed," she says, not looking at me. "Everyone's doing it." I stare at her. "Everyone's wearing bags on their heads?" She sighs like I'm being difficult. "Not everyone. Just some people. It's like a masquerade thing." I should have questioned it more. I should have put my foot down right there. But I trusted her. I always trusted her. We get to the party, and immediately I know something's wrong. Nobody else has anything on their face. Not masks, not bags, nothing. I'm standing there in this hotel ballroom with a grocery bag over my head, and everyone's staring. Sarah introduces me to her boss, this perfectly polished woman in her 50s. "This is my husband," she says cheerfully. "He's being a good sport about the theme tonight." Her boss looks confused. "What theme?" I want to disappear. I want to sink through the floor. But Sarah just laughs it off and drags me away to the bar. The worst part wasn't even the stairs. It was how Sarah acted like everything was normal. She chatted with her coworkers, laughed at their jokes, posed for pictures, always making sure I was slightly behind her or to the side, like I was some embarrassing relative she had to babysit. About an hour in, I couldn't take it anymore. Pulled her aside. "Sarah, what the hell is going on? Nobody else is wearing anything on their face." She looks around nervously. "Some people took theirs off. It's fine." "What people?" I haven't seen a single other person with a mask or bag or anything. That's when she gets this look in her eyes. Cold. Distant. "Can we not do this here? You're making a scene." Making a scene. Me. The guy with a bag over his head that she put there. I spent the rest of the night nursing a beer in the corner, trying to figure out what was happening to my life. People kept coming up and asking about the bag, and I just mumbled some excuse about allergies or a skin condition. Sarah would swoop in and change the subject. When we got home, I confronted her again. Really confronted her this time. "Tell me the truth. Why did you make me wear that bag?" She was taking off her earrings, acting casual. "I told you it was themed." "Sarah, stop lying to me. There was no theme. You made me look like an idiot." She spins around, and for the first time all night, I see something real in her face. Anger. Frustration. "Fine. You want the truth? You really want the truth?" I nod, even though I'm terrified of what's coming. "You don't fit in with my work crowd. Okay? You don't. And I can't keep making excuses for why my husband looks like he got hit by a truck and shops at thrift stores." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stepped backward. "I've been patient," she continues. "I've been trying to help you. I bought you nice clothes, I suggested you fix your teeth. I even looked into that plastic surgery consultation for your scars. But you won't listen. You won't try. So I figured this was a compromise. You could still come with me, but I wouldn't have to be embarrassed." I stare at her. This woman I've loved for 8 years. This woman I've supported through her career changes, her family drama, her anxiety attacks. This woman who used to trace my scars with her finger and tell me they made me look distinguished. Embarrassed, I repeat. You're embarrassed of me. I didn't say that. You literally just said that. We stood there in our bedroom, her in her beautiful red dress and me still in my wrinkled suit, and I felt something break inside me. Not just my heart, though that was definitely broken. Something deeper. My sense of who I was, who I thought we were together. I slept on the couch that night, and the next night, and the next. That was 3 days ago. I haven't been able to concentrate on anything. I keep replaying the whole night in my head, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Was I really that blind? Have I been living in a fantasy for 8 years? I called my buddy Marcus today. We've been friends since high school, and he's always been straight with me. I told him what happened, and there was this long silence. Dude, he finally says, that's fucked up. Like, really fucked up. But am I overreacting? I mean, maybe she's right. Maybe I don't fit in with her crowd. Listen to me, Marcus says, and his voice is serious. Nobody who loves you would put a bag over your head. Nobody. I don't care if you looked like Frankenstein's monster. You don't do that to someone you love. I think he might be right. But I also think about the life Sarah and I built together. Our apartment, our routines, our plans. The vacation we booked for next month. The way she used to laugh at my stupid jokes. I don't know what to do. Reddit. Part of me wants to fight for us to try to work this out. But how do you come back from something like this? How do you look at someone the same way after they've literally tried to hide your face from the world? I'm scared. I'm hurt. And I'm more confused than I've ever been in my life. What would you do? Update 1 week later. Holy shit, you guys. I wasn't expecting this to blow up like it did. Thank you to everyone who commented and messaged me. I've been reading everything, even if I haven't responded to all of it. A lot has happened since my last post. First, the good news. I found out I'm not crazy. The bad news, everything else. So after reading all your comments, I decided to do some digging. Some of you suggested that this might not have been the first time Sarah was embarrassed by me, and you were right. I started thinking back over the past few years, really examining our relationship with fresh eyes. Remember how I said Sarah was always the social one? Well, I realized that over time she'd been inviting me to fewer and fewer things. At first it was just, oh, you'd be bored, or it's just work people, you don't want to come. Then it became, it's just girls, or it's a small gathering. I thought she was being considerate. Turns out she was just managing me. I started going through old photos on her social media. You know what I found? I'm in almost none of them from the past 2 years. Not at her birthday party last year, not at her work happy hours, not at her friend's wedding. I remember being at some of these events, but somehow I never made it into the pictures. But here's the kicker. I decided to reach out to Tom. This guy from her work I'd met a few times. Nice guy, always seemed friendly. I figured I'd just casually ask about the party, maybe get some perspective. We met for coffee yesterday and the conversation. Man, it was brutal. Dude, Tom says, stirring his latte. I have to ask, what was with the bag thing? I give him the same story Sarah gave me about the theme, and he just stares at me. There was no theme, man. Everyone was talking about it after you guys left. We were all confused as hell. So I tell him the truth. The whole truth about what Sarah said. About being embarrassed, all of it. And Tom's face just gets darker and darker. Jesus, he says. That's really messed up. Then he tells me something that made my blood run cold. You know, Sarah's been telling people at work that you have some kind of social anxiety disorder. She says that's why you don't come to things anymore, and when you do, you're uncomfortable around people. I nearly choked on my coffee. She said what? Yeah, she's been playing it up for sympathy, talking about how hard it is being married to someone who can't handle social situations. People feel bad for her. I felt sick, physically sick. This woman I'd loved and trusted had been systematically erasing me from her life while simultaneously using me as a sob story to get sympathy from her coworkers. When I got home, Sarah was in the kitchen making dinner like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't been sleeping in separate rooms for a week. Like she hadn't humiliated me in front of her entire office. We need to talk, I said. She sighs without turning around. If this is about the party again, I already apologized. You never apologized. And it's not just about the party. I told her about my conversation with Tom, about the photos, about the pattern I'd finally started to see. And you know what she did? She got angry at me. At me. You talked to Tom? You talked to my coworker about our private business. You've been talking to your coworkers about our private business for months. That's different. How is that different? Because I work with these people. I have to maintain professional relationships. We went back and forth like this for an hour. Her defending her actions, me trying to understand how the woman I married could have become someone I didn't recognize. And then she said something that I think might have been the final straw. Maybe if you made more of an effort with your appearance, I wouldn't have to make excuses for you. I stared at her. Make excuses? Is that what you call lying about me having a mental health condition? I never said you had a mental health condition. Social anxiety disorder is a mental health condition, Sarah. Well, maybe you do have it. Maybe that's why you can't handle normal social situations. That's when I realized she wasn't just embarrassed by me. She was actively trying to rewrite history to make me the problem. To make herself the victim of my inadequacies instead of someone who'd been systematically cruel to her husband. I'm staying at Marcus's place now. I packed a bag this morning while Sarah was at work. Left her a note saying I needed space to think. Marcus has been great. He let me crash in his spare room, and he's been listening to me work through all of this without judgment. His girlfriend Emma came over last night with Chinese food and just sat with us while I talked. She didn't say much, but at one point she looked at me and said, "You know you're not ugly, right? You're actually a pretty good-looking guy." It was such a simple thing to say, but I actually started crying. When was the last time someone complimented my appearance? When was the last time I felt attractive or wanted or valued for who I was? I can't remember. I've got a consultation with a divorce lawyer on Monday. I never thought I'd be typing those words, but here we are. The weird thing is, underneath all the hurt and anger, I'm starting to feel something else. Relief, maybe, like I can finally breathe again. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know I can't go back to being the man Sarah wanted me to be, invisible, grateful, and silent. Thank you all again for the support. I'll keep you posted. Update 2-3 weeks later. I've been putting off writing this update because I wasn't sure how to process everything that's happened. But I think I'm finally ready to share. First, the divorce is happening. The lawyer consultation went well and we're moving forward. Sarah and I are going to try mediation first since we don't have kids and our finances are relatively straightforward. She's been alternating between angry and devastated, which is honestly exhausting to deal with even from a distance. But that's not really what I want to talk about today. Remember how I mentioned that car accident that left me with scars? Well, I never really told the whole story about that. I was 19, driving back from visiting my parents, when I got hit by a drunk driver. Spent 3 weeks in the hospital, had multiple surgeries, the whole deal. The physical recovery was hard, but the emotional part was worse. I was young and stupid and thought my life was over because I didn't look like a movie star anymore. That's actually how I met Sarah. She was volunteering at the hospital where I was doing physical therapy, and she was so kind to me. She made me feel normal again, like my scars didn't define me. I thought she saw past all that surface stuff to who I really was. Looking back now, I think maybe she was attracted to my vulnerability. Maybe she liked being the one who could make me feel better about myself. And somewhere along the way, that dynamic got twisted into something else. Anyway, I'm telling you this because something happened last week that kind of changed everything for me. I was at the grocery store near Marcus's place, just doing normal shopping stuff, when this woman in front of me in the checkout line started having trouble with her card. The machine kept declining it, and she was getting flustered. She had 2 kids with her, maybe 4 and 6 years old, and they were starting to get restless. Without really thinking about it, I stepped up and told the cashier I'd cover her groceries. It wasn't much, maybe $40. But the woman looked at me like I just handed her $1 million. "Are you sure?" she asked. "I can call my husband, he can bring cash." "It's really not a problem," I said. "We've all been there." She thanked me about 10 times, and as we were walking out, she stopped me in the parking lot. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know this might sound weird, but you have really kind eyes. My kids were asking about your scars, and I was trying to figure out how to explain that sometimes people have been through hard things, but they're still good people. And then you did this incredibly nice thing for a complete stranger. And it proved my point. You know, I helped her load her groceries into her car, and her little boy, the 4-year-old, looked up at me and said, 'You look like a superhero.' Superheroes always have battle scars." I drove back to Marcus's place in tears. Good tears for once. It hit me that I'd spent 8 years seeing myself through Sarah's eyes. 8 years believing that my worth as a person was tied to whether I embarrassed her or fit in with her crowd or looked good in photos. 8 years shrinking myself down to accommodate someone else's idea of who I should be. That little kid didn't see damaged goods or someone to be hidden away. He saw a superhero. I started thinking about all the people in my life who'd never made me feel like I needed to apologize for existing. Marcus, who'd been my friend since we were teenagers and never once made me feel like my appearance was an issue. My parents, who called me their handsome boy well into my 20s. My coworkers, who valued my ideas and my work ethic. The woman at the coffee shop who always remembered my order and smiled when I walked in. All these people saw me as worthy of basic human dignity and respect. It was only Sarah who didn't. I've been staying busy. Marcus got me involved in this volunteer program where we help build houses for families in need. Turns out I'm pretty good with my hands, and there's something really satisfying about creating something concrete and useful. The other volunteers are a mix of people, different ages, different backgrounds, different reasons for being there. Nobody cares what anyone looks like. We're all just there to help. There's this woman, Janet, who's been doing this for years. She's maybe 60, with gray hair and laugh lines and paint-stained clothes. She's become kind of a mentor to me, though I don't think she realizes it. She has this way of treating everyone like they're exactly where they're supposed to be, like they're valuable just as they are. Last week, we were working on framing a wall together, and she started telling me about her divorce 20 years ago. "Worst thing that ever happened to me," she said, hammering a nail with perfect precision. "And the best thing that ever happened to me." I asked her what she meant. "Well, it was the worst because I loved him, and I thought we were building something together. But it was the best because I found out I was stronger than I thought. I found out I could build things on my own literally and figuratively." She gestured around at the house we were working on. "This is the 43rd house I've helped build since my divorce. I've learned electrical work, plumbing, roofing, all kinds of stuff I never thought I could do. My ex-husband used to act like I couldn't even change a light bulb without his help. Turns out I can wire a whole damn house." That conversation stuck with me. I realized I'd forgotten what I was capable of. I'd gotten so focused on being the husband Sarah wanted that I'd lost track of who I actually was. I've been rediscovering that person. He's not perfect and he's got some scars, but he's not broken. He's not someone who needs to be hidden away or apologized for. Sarah texted me yesterday asking if we could talk. She wants to try counseling, wants to work things out. Part of me feels guilty for not being more open to it. 8 years is a long time to throw away. But then I think about that bag over my head, and the lies she told her coworkers, and the way she looked at me that night in our bedroom. I think about all the events I missed, all the photos I wasn't in, all the times I made myself smaller so she could feel better about being with me. I can't go back to that. I won't go back to that. I'm not saying I'll never date again or fall in love again. But if I do, it's going to be with someone who sees me the way that little boy in the grocery store did. Like someone who's been through battles and came out stronger, not someone who needs to be hidden away. For now, I'm focusing on building houses and building myself back up. It's good work, both kinds. Final update 2 months later. I wasn't planning to write another update, but so many of you have been asking for closure, and honestly, I think I need to write this for myself as much as for you. The divorce is finalized. It was surprisingly straightforward once we got through the initial drama. We split everything pretty evenly, and Sarah's keeping the apartment. I'm okay with that. Too many bad memories there anyway. She tried one last time to get me to reconsider about 3 weeks ago. Showed up at Marcus's place unannounced, looking like the woman I fell in love with in college. Hair done. Makeup perfect. wearing that blue dress I always said I loved. "I've been thinking," she said when I answered the door. "Maybe we both overreacted. Maybe we can start fresh." I invited her in because it felt like the decent thing to do, but I knew it was over before we even sat down. She spent an hour telling me about the changes she wanted to make, the compromises she was willing to offer. But it was all surface stuff: couples therapy, date nights, better communication. She never once acknowledged what she'd actually done to me, never apologized for the humiliation, the lies, the systematic way she tried to erase me from her life. It was like she thought the problem was just that we hadn't been spending enough quality time together. When I brought up the bag, the lies about my mental health, the pattern of exclusion, she got defensive again. "I'm trying to move forward," she said. "Why do you keep dwelling on the past?" That's when I knew for sure. You can't fix a relationship with someone who refuses to acknowledge that they broke it. But this update isn't really about Sarah. It's about what's happened since. Remember Janet from the volunteer program? Well, it turns out she runs a small construction company that specializes in accessible housing modifications. She offered me a job about a month ago, real pay, full benefits, the whole deal. I'd been doing office work since college, but I discovered I love working with my hands, love the problem-solving aspect of construction, love the feeling of building something real and useful. I'm good at it, too. Really good. Janet says I have natural instincts for the work, and I've been learning fast. It's honest work, and at the end of each day, I can see exactly what I've accomplished. The pay is actually better than my old job, which was a surprise. But more than that, I feel valued there. My ideas matter. My skills matter. I matter. I found my own place last week. It's a small apartment about 15 minutes from the construction site. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I painted the living room this warm yellow color that Sarah always said was too bright. It makes me smile every time I walk in. Marcus helped me move, and as we were setting up my couch, he said something that stuck with me. "You know what's different about you now?" I asked him what he meant. "You take up space again, like actual physical space. You're not trying to make yourself smaller anymore." He was right. I hadn't realized it, but I had been doing that, hunching my shoulders, avoiding eye contact, trying to be as unobtrusive as possible. Somewhere in the past few months, I'd started standing up straight again. I've been dating a little bit, nothing serious yet. Just casual coffee dates, a few dinners. It's weird being single again after 8 years, but it's also kind of exciting. I'm learning what I actually like, what I actually want, without filtering it through someone else's expectations. There's this woman, Lisa, who I met through the volunteer program. She's a teacher, divorced, has a 10-year-old daughter. We've been on 3 dates so far, and she's different. She looks at me when I talk. She asks follow-up questions. She laughs at my jokes not because she feels like she has to, but because she actually thinks they're funny. Last week, we were at this little restaurant downtown, and I was telling her a story about a mishap at the construction site. I was really getting into it, using my hands to demonstrate what happened, and I caught her just watching me, smiling. "What?" I asked. "Nothing," she said. "You just light up when you talk about your work. It's nice to see someone so passionate about what they do." When was the last time Sarah looked at me like that? I honestly can't remember. I'm not rushing into anything with Lisa. I've learned that I need to be okay with myself before I can be good for someone else. But it's nice to remember what it feels like to be appreciated for who you are instead of criticized for who you're not. The scars are still there, obviously. They always will be. But I'm starting to see them differently. They're part of my story, not the whole story. They're proof that I survived something difficult, not evidence that I'm somehow less than whole. That kid in the grocery store had it right. Superheroes do have battle scars. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to say to anyone who might be reading this and seeing themselves in my story. If your partner makes you feel like you need to apologize for existing, if they hide you away or lie about you or make you smaller so they can feel bigger, that's not love. That's not even close to love. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to take up space in this world. Took me 8 years and a paper bag over my head to figure that out, but